Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second webinar in our series of Lunch and Learn. We appreciate you making some time to be with us today. And today we wanted to talk to you about marketing automation and lessons learned. And those lessons really have been learned by us here at Marketing Cube, having installed marketing automation for over 10 years now. And we've seen a lot of different clients, various different sizes across the region, in large part, have great success with their implementation. But what we wanted to try and do today was identify some of those roadblocks or speed bumps potentially along the way that might help save you some time as you explore marketing automation. So let me introduce those that are with us today. We have Adrian Jones, who is the CEO and founder of Marketing Cube. So thank you, Adrian, for being with us.
Welcome.
And we have Ruth Melody from Oracle. Ruth spends a lot of time with customers helping them figure out these types of solutions, very focused in the marketing automation space. So we're grateful to have Ruth with us today. And my name is Derek Bell, and I'll sort of be hosting today and sort of be answering some questions as well, as we kind of probably share the hosting exercise between Ruth and myself. So at that point, I'll hand over to Ruth, and we'll get started on our tips.
Fantastic. Thank you, Derek, and thanks everyone for joining. We're going to go through a number of different topics today. The first one that we're going to talk about is defining your marketing strategy. So why are you doing this anyway is the question. So we've come across a lot of customers, obviously, with Marketing Cube and Oracle. We want to know, how important is it to link your marketing automation planning and your marketing strategy? What is it that makes it so important?
I think it's absolutely the key question. If there was a takeaway from today's session, it would be this. So I think we really need to be crystal clear about how marketing automation is going to help you achieve your goals, either at an organizational level or just you as a marketer. I think you really need to understand that. So you're likely going to be measured on how you can generate more marketing qualified leads, or how you're going to retain more customers. And you need to understand the role that marketing automation is going to play in that, in order to be able to go through the process of selecting the right platform, or implementing it the right way, or or just using the platform to the best it can possibly be. So
yeah. And how do you kind of recommend customers do this? Like, where do they start?
Very often it starts early in the process with the business case. So, I mean, why is it that you're thinking about doing this? Is there an ROI around buying this marketing automation platform? And you define how that's going to work. And in order to determine that, you kind of got to align it with your strategy, right? So what often happens, I think, is that people don't go back to that original business plan or that ROI and say, these were the things that we were expecting, and measure it again, maybe quarterly back against that plan. Or even, maybe it doesn't even get to that point in the business case. It's just like, we really feel that we need marketing automation as part of our digital transformation. And it never really gets quantified. The challenge for a lot of organizations is, if you can't measure something today, then how do you start to quantify them? If you can't measure how many marketing qualified leads you're actually producing with your current platform, how do you then say, when we have marketing automation, we're going to do this? It doesn't necessarily have to be that quantitative. Ideally, yes. But even if you can't do that, I'd say put a stake in the ground and go, this is our expectation, is that we will deliver this, and try to put some hard numbers around it. Then go back and change them, reset expectations. But you need to have that framework, and that needs to tie back to your overall marketing goals. So you could say, the reason we're doing this is to become more customer centric, to drive more transformational, to be better with our digital communications, whatever it might be. These are our measures. This is what we're going to deliver to the sales team. This is what we're expecting. This is what we want our customers to say. Our brand recognition is going to go from A to B, and put some stakes in the ground and measure yourselves against those. Because ultimately then the investment that you're making, the time that you're spending, is reflecting back against your organizational goals, and you're aligned. And that just makes the rest of the process so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're mentioning people wanting to do more and help with their digital transformation, or becoming more customer centric. Do you feel that some people or some customers out there are outgrowing some of their existing systems that they have? Or do they just not want to put something else in, or are happy to do manual processes?
I don't think anybody's really happy to do manual processes. It's just a question about how they then move. And so there's lots of things we'll go on to talk about, like about how to manage that transition. But I suppose the the important thing is to have that overarching strategy in mind. So at least you can say, okay, the reason that we want to do this ties into one of our top 5 pillars for the organization or touches more than these 3 things. And this is how we're going to measure it. And this is how we're going to demonstrate success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so we'll move on to our second topic for today, which is getting executive support. So your C-level sponsorship in there. And this is from an internal perspective to know that your efforts that you're putting in are being heard by the people who are going to kind of make the decisions, or the ones that you really want to get on board with you. So executive support and buy-in. Why do you feel yourself that this ranks so highly?
Well, I think where we see organizations go ahead with a marketing automation decision and not have executive support, it almost invariably gets unstuck at some point in the process. And it might take 6 months, it might take a couple of years, but it's really been, it's much harder to get executive support later. So I suppose one of the challenges with software as a service and the ability to start small is that you can go ahead and buy a marketing automation platform without anybody knowing.
Under the radar.
Under the radar,
yeah.
And we've seen it. Some of the largest organizations in Australia have bought marketing automation under the radar, and it's bought literally with the campaign budget, right, with a single campaign budget, and they've gone, okay, we're going to get it. But the problem is there is no executive support.
Yeah.
So then you've got to work your way up, right? So the executive hasn't been involved in the decision-making process. So it's just something that's happened. So how do we now make that part of the framework and something that they were involved in? They've probably got their own agenda and they've got their own plans for what they want to do. So this isn't part of it. And then down the track, there's going to be investment. So there is an aspect of marketing automation which is automated, right? And it's going to work in the background, but it does need investment. You're going to need content. You're going to need data. You're going to need to spend time to add extra layers to it. And if you haven't got executive support, none of that's really going to happen.
Yeah.
And so then you've got to go and do that process later. So I definitely think early in the process, as early as possible, you need to get everybody on board with what you're doing and get executive support to what you're doing. And they need to understand, how this maps and going back to kind of guess number 1, maps to the overall strategy for the business and how it's going to help. And if you can do that, then it's going to make any budget and time investments that you need to make later on just so much easier. Get much more value from the platform.
Absolutely. And I think we're working with a great company at the moment, and a real life case where we've got a really keen marketing coordinator. He's come to one of the workshops that we've conducted. So a really good hands-on experience with Oracle Marketing Cloud, loves the platform, sees the value that it could bring, can understand how it would make a massive difference to his role, and how it can even save the company hundreds of thousands implementing a marketing automation instead. But what his problem now is trying to get that buy-in from executives and trying to build a business case, or try to just get that executive support. So I suppose you've already mentioned some, but have you missed out on any other suggestions that you'd have to help him kind of get that exec on board?
Yeah, I think definitely tie back to those organizational goals. Another way to look at it is painting a future vision. So go look at yourselves, look at the organization and say, what will we be doing in 5 years' time? Will we still be doing the same things that we're doing today in 5 years' time? Is that the customer experience that we will be delivering in 5 years' time? Is that the expectation? Will we keep up with our competitors if we continue to do that? And if the answer to any of those is we need to change, then how do we plan that back to where we are today so that we're going to get there in 5 years' time? Because, often everybody knows this technology is moving so fast. The customer experience is changing so fast. And what did I hear the other day? All cars will be driverless in 20 years' time or in 15 years' time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of scary. And if you're saying, well, yeah, we're going to be mailing the same way we do today to, all of our customers in 5 years' time, I go, no, I don't know that that's right. So, you've got to think about what's your plan to get from where you are to their vision, your joint vision of what that experience is going to be that you're going to be delivering, over that period. And I think, then what are the steps that you need to take to get there? The other thing with executive support as well, we've had customers now that have been using marketing automation and we've been supporting for 10 years. And the reality is that C-level changes. and it actually changes quite frequently, alarmingly frequently. So, so then it's like almost a constant re-education and a why this is why did you do the things that you do? Why have you got the things in place that you have? How does this fit with the new executive vision?
Yeah.
So it's not like a one-off process where you go, our execs are all bought in. It's okay, this is our journey. This is where we are on it. And this is why it's the right journey. These are all the wins we've had so far. This is what we see for the next 12 months. It's I guess we could say, not getting it, it's keeping executive support. And then getting replacement executive support. That's the reality. That is the reality of what happens.
Great, thank you, Adrian. So on to our third topic. And this is something that comes up a lot, I feel, that it's getting IT and sales involved early. So even if you don't need or want them today, you will later. We've come up against a lot of not objections, more so apprehension. So IT can be somewhat apprehensive when introducing another application. They don't always necessarily see the business value or even the use for it. All they see really is the complexity it's going to bring them and how more difficult their life may be. So how do you suggest we can reassure them that it won't actually have that much of an impact on them, if any, and they can continue on with their daily work without more grief?
Sure. No, so there are a few different aspects here. So I'm focusing in on IT at first. I mean, the first thing is that the Oracle Marketing Cloud is software as a service application. So that does mean inherently that the infrastructure, the security, the application updates, and support are kind of all included in a licensing model. So, I mean, it shouldn't be a huge additional burden to any IT department to bring that into their environment. And it was interesting. I was lucky enough to be at the Modern Marketing Experience in Vegas, and there was a discussion there about the changing role of a CIO. And really, there is much more of a feeling that CIOs are moving towards being consultants to the business and really looking at how can they leverage technology to help their business around them achieve what it is that they need to achieve. So it's not so much about building an internal infrastructure and being the guardians of everything that they've created, right? It's more moving towards, okay, I need a business. If they want to be able to do this, the technology we have today doesn't support what it is they're trying to do. What is available and what would we recommend as being the best way forward? And how will we as a business support that moving forward? So I think that is rapidly changing. And I think with that kind of a mindset, IT is much more open to looking at platforms that perhaps incorporate a lot of processes and business functions on one platform that were previously being done by many other platforms. So it's almost, how can I consolidate? How can I get more value? How can I deliver more business requirements through one platform or a group of best of breed applications that will fit together nicely and interconnect?
So moving just off of the IT part then and talking about sales. So we also do come across, sales and marketing teams not always being aligned. So they're somewhat siloed and not necessarily seeing the value that each department is bringing. Some marketing organizations might be wondering, what are the sales team doing? Are they just sitting on their hands and hoping that leads will come in and deals will kind of close by themselves? And then on the flip side, the sales team wondering, like, what are marketing doing? They're always giving us bad leads, or, we don't actually know what value they're bringing to the business. I think with an application like Eloqua from Oracle Marketing Cloud, how can we bring these teams together, work more closely, and see the value that each department is actually bringing to the organization?
Obviously, the cooperation between marketing and sales is a given, and is a given now. But it's interesting. Still, some of the most robust discussions that we have going into organizations that we work with goes down to the definition of a lead. Literally, a question as simple as that can take hours to resolve, because
days.
Yeah. And so it's really important that, when marketing has been asked to deliver X number of leads and sales is expecting X number of leads, that the definition of a lead is the same thing. Otherwise, what you ask for and what you're going to get are going to be two different things. And it's really, that's kind of the basis, is getting people on the same page. And, I'm talking about that very simplistically. The definition of a lead can go on and on. You might have multiple divisions, multiple departments, different types of leads for different types of sales organizations, so it can get complicated. But fundamentally, there needs to be consensus and agreement about what a good lead is in order for marketing to be able to generate one or to build towards getting one, and for sales to say, yes, that matches what I was expecting. So I think it starts there. But sales need to be involved in that discussion early to be able to help and to be able to give marketing, I guess, the ideas that they need around how they can then structure the campaigns, data collection, everything else to help qualify those leads in advance.
Going the other way too, though, that discussion is very much about the marketing team feeding them through to sales. What you've also got now, though, once you look at integrating, say, a CRM with Eloqua, is those leads that the salespeople bring into the business and pop into the CRM based on certain criteria that can be agreed between the two organizations. They can now flow into the marketing automation, and marketing can pick that up for the salesperson. They can deliver a very personalized experience. It will come from, all communications come from the salesperson, etc. So because you've got that integration in play, which we'll talk a bit more in a moment, it's not just marketing pushing everything into sales. It's now it's kind of alignment, right? You've got both sides working to the same goal. And so the technology together helps with that.
Yeah. I think it also helps with the visibility. So, I remember that one of the early organizations, that I worked with, where we used to have a monthly meeting about all the campaigns that were going out that month. And, you just don't need that with the technology anymore. You're able to easily see which campaigns have been sent to somebody within the CRM, whether they've opened them, whether they've clicked through. All of that information is available at the click of a button on any contact. And vice versa, if you're in marketing, you can see who's reacting, who's engaging. You don't need to ask the salespeople who's registered and who can they fill out the Excel spreadsheet of everybody they'd like to invite to the event. Those days they're in the past. So it just makes this so much easier. And leveraging technology helps so much with this sales and marketing alignment.
And collaboration.
Real collaboration.
And one of the cautions, I suppose, too, there was, especially when the CRM is involved in sales and marketing, there are processes that need to be considered, and then working out how the marketing automation platform is going to fit into that. And, we sort of listed that quotation there earlier, that if you've got a broken business process, if you simply rush to automate it, you're just going to fail faster. So sometimes moving into a semi-automatic process is a good starting point, and then looking to automate something like that.
Yeah, good point.
So a really good example of that is a lead score. And so often people will put in place a lead score, and they'll say, okay, well, the primary purpose of our lead score is to filter out leads that aren't ready. And we won't push the leads through to sales until they have done ABC and we know, X, Y, Z about them. And 100% agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. If you've got too many leads or not the right leads, then it makes sense for sales not to be involved in all of those. But if you don't know what that scoring is going to do, and you don't know exactly how that's going to work, then run them both in parallel and don't filter leads until you're confident that the leads that you're filtering are not the right ones. And that's easy to do. All you do is expose the lead score to the sales team and say, how's that lead score going? Is it accurate? Do you find that most of the leads, or you could even empirically test the data and go, the leads that have the highest score always convert or don't convert. That's the hypothesis. Then run that and see whether the lead score is actually working. When it is, and that might be, 3 months down the track or 4 months down the track, then start to take it out and act more as a filter, because you're confident what you're filtering are actually not going to be good leads. And that's just an example really of just testing the process first and using that automation before going gung-ho into finding
absolutely.
Solution.
Excellent. Okay, we'll move on to topic 4. So this is start small, but with the end in mind. So thinking globally and acting locally. So you've got a lot of companies that have some type of apprehension of perhaps bringing a bigger solution in, or what we'd call an enterprise grade solution, which shouldn't be something to be scared of. But perhaps into a smaller organization, they might be a bit apprehensive. They feel that they don't want to kind of overdo it or take it from something small to something big really, really quickly, and would just feel that they might not be able to cope with that. So
Or resource it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So how do you recommend organizations to get started? Do you go in gung-ho and just go big bang, or do you start something small and have this kind of crawl, walk, run type of approach?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the scale, I guess the scale of the organization, but the resources that are available, the investment that's being made in the project and what it is that you're trying to achieve. But and it's interesting when I see, people pull their requirements together, the first place they often start is everything that we want that we don't have today. So there's this long list of requirements, right? And it's pages and pages long, all sorts of things that an organization doesn't have today. And that's fair enough. That's painting the vision for the future. But that then becomes the requirement statement. So now these are all our requirements. What we want has to be able to do this. We want to be able to do that. And it goes through all of that. And then that becomes the implementation program. So then there's this big bang implementation program, which is massive and far too daunting for anybody to look at. And in reality, most organizations are not going to turn all of those things on, and it's way, way, way beyond where they are today. So at the end of the day, there's got to be real back to what are we actually going to be able to do in 3 months' time, or in 1 month's time, or post-implementation. Once we've got the system, that's really going to make a difference. And so we don't want to do necessarily just a straight replacement and a swap out of all the process for exactly talking to Derek's point before, because we're just automating what we've already got. So we've got our newsletters of our lead gen programs, and they're going to look exactly the same, but now they're going to be in a different platform. Haven't really got anywhere. There's no progress. But we do want to say, okay, we're going to make, let's say, that we feel that the most important thing we need to be able to do today is better manage the way that we generate our leads, or better manage our welcome programs, or our conversions from trials, or retention, whatever it might be. That's the focus. Then wrap a project, around that, make that the goal. Make it a little bit smaller, and then prove the value, prove that it works, and then expand it out. Because you can go on and use the platform for all sorts of things. You have customers, they automate their channel communications, their partner communications, their internal communications and events. There's lots of different applications. But the thing is, what's going to really deliver the most amount of value in the short term, and maybe that's something that if you can wrap your arms and your resources around that, start there and then expand out.
To give you an example, Ruth, we have one client in Melbourne, and it's the GM and the marketer. That's it, running Eloqua. Okay, so we're talking sort of 10,000 contacts, not a massive database, but a very high value database type of people that they're talking to. At the other extreme end of that, we've got an IT manufacturer based in mainland China with, offices globally, but we work with the Asia-Pac team stretching from Japan, China, right throughout Southeast Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand. And the implementations were somewhat similar. There was, integration to a CRM. The larger client took on the idea of a single instance of Eloqua. They had, options to choose because it was a big account, but they went with one, and they saw the benefit of that, rolling up reporting right across the region, just as the one client in Melbourne with basically the general manager and the marketer. So sometimes the size is not always the indicator. It's about the processes, about what's the focus, what's the objective, as Adrian identified. The problem with that functional list of requirements is you kind of lose sight of the customer journey. It's like, it must send emails. Yeah, okay, I get that. It must be able to turn it on. Yeah, okay, I get that. Okay, that's fine. But where's the customer in that whole experience? So that's just two examples of two extremes, but both using exactly the same platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing daunting at all. All right, we'll move on to topic 5. Get your data in good shape, but not perfect, and understand your sources of truth. So this is definitely something that we come across on a daily basis. It does come up a lot. So there's companies that have data in multiple places. They're in silos, they're in separate applications, they're on spreadsheets, they're everywhere. They might not even know where to start to get it cleared or cleaned up. And therefore, they don't want to think about having another application that has another data source. So they aren't quite sure about the amount of data they need then to go into a marketing automation, and how they'd even get it in there, or what's the right amount to know about someone, and what kind of data do we need for it. So it's just all over the place. So what have you kind of come up against, and how have you suggested to help with it?
Well, I mean, in that sort of scenario you just painted, which is kind of all over the place, then a broad platform that's able to take in that data, kind of digest it, put a unique identifier against it, like an email, and then map everything to that, gives you a database structure straight away. Gives you somewhere to store it, somewhere to keep it up to date, somewhere to store opt-ins, somewhere to understand subscription preferences, start to build out profiles, start to build out engagement. And it really, from a marketing perspective, creating that one kind of digital marketing view, it is that repository. It can be that repository moving forward. So it's not one, it could be the one platform where you could store all that disparate data. And it's easy to load it in, and it's easy to keep it up to date. So I think in that scenario, I would do that. In most cases, people have CRM, and they're going, okay, what should I put into the marketing cloud from my CRM? And then they have data there, and maybe the CRM has duplicates, and maybe it has not great data in it, because sometimes the sales team aren't that good at keeping it up to date. Just sometimes. So then you got to look at what you've got there. And sometimes it's not the sales team's fault. Sometimes that data is coming from other places, and other places are updating the CRM or coming in directly, and maybe they're not that great either. So look at, say you've got channel filling in details on a mandatory order form that needs to get submitted, and they'll sometimes take a shortcut and not put in all the details they're supposed to, right? So then the information comes in. But the problem from a marketing automation perspective is then the first name's not right, or it's the first name and the second name in the first name field, right? Or it's all capitals. And so when the email comes out, you're shouting, or it's wrong, or it's the surname. And, you don't want Dear Jones going out in an email, so you have to get those things right before you can send it out. The problem from a customer's perspective often is, thank you. The problem from a customer's perspective is, how perfect does it need to be? And the good news is, what was your quote earlier? Garbage in, garbage out. But nothing cleans data faster than marketing automation platform as well, right? So because you're using it, and there are tools within the platform that help you. So Eloquat, for example, has a data washing machine, and you can take some of those things and you can automatically prop a case or test and see if there's the information there or not. And you can ask people to update their details. And when you pre-populate a form and you say, would you like to come to this event? And the details are wrong, people will go in and go, oh yeah, no, that's not my surname anymore. It's been updated. And I think those types of things really help to clean the data. And you're also then using maybe you might have 3 contacts or 3 records, and you've got 1 record that is kind of the active record, and the active record gets updated, and then we can just slowly start to tidy the old records up and say, well, this one, no one's responded to this email for the last 6 months, maybe it's no longer a valid email. We're not going to keep emailing them. So you will clean your data very quickly, and then you'll start to grow that database, because what happens is, once you have that central store, is you actually start to collect valid contact addresses and grow your digital community. When you're in that situation you're before with, an Excel spreadsheet of event from last year over there, and the sales list over there, and you've got no way of measuring, almost what one of your most important assets. You've got no way of measuring what it is, how you're engaging, where you're up to with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's nothing worse than receiving an email that doesn't have your correct name, or that it might have dear customer, or in this case, we have hello Derek.
So this one's correct.
Oh.
But if the sales team are filling in emails, and I sat with a client last year sometime, and we looked through their data, and that had a special promotion in relation to an iPhone. And so because there was nowhere for them to put that data in the CRM, they were throwing the existing iPhone model of the person as the first name.
Oh.
So they then discovered we had all these emails going out saying, dear iPhone 6, dear iPhone 7, dear iPhone 4.
No.
It was unbelievable. So yeah, you got to really watch these things because you don't want that experience on the right-hand side.
No, definitely not. Okay, moving on. We are at topic 6. So integrate what you need and will use today and in the near future. So I think this is really interesting. We've talked a bit about integration. So kind of give us some examples of what this might be or what this might look like.
Yeah, so I think going back to that data point, we need to get the data, accurate, but it's really the data that we're using today or going to be using in the near future that we need to think about. And purely looking at it purely with a marketing lens, there's really 2 frameworks or two lenses that we need to apply. One is, are we going to use that data to do better segmentation? So do we need to know the state that they're in, or do we need to know the country they're coming from, or do we need to know whether they're a large or small organization, for example, in order for us to do a relevant, say, onboarding journey? Or at the moment, the onboarding journey is the same for everybody, so we don't need it. So we have to decide what those data points are, but we don't need to put every single data point that we have available in our organization into the marketing automation platform from day one. So often we see people just really making that integration super complicated, trying to get to data points that marketing have no intention of using or no capability of digesting for the next sort of 12 to 24 months. They're not even at the point. So even if you told them, oh yeah, we think they're going to be this persona, go, well, we don't do any persona communications at the moment. Or this person doesn't pay on time. Well, we don't segment by whether they pay on time or not. So we might in the future. And the beautiful thing really about integration now is that it's so much more layered. So I guess, going back a time, you would go, right, let's set up our whole integration and all of our infrastructure, and we don't get a chance to do version 2 for another 18 months. Whereas now you can layer in more integration and layer in more fields as you need to. So we'll talk a little bit more about that architecture, but I think it's just important not to try to kind of boil the ocean, bring in too much data too early, unless it's going to be relevant.
Yeah, and marketing relevant.
And marketing relevant. What use cases are you actually going to be delivering against that?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, sometimes things like surnames can be a nightmare, but it's actually, funnily enough, with all the time I've spent with customers over the years, surname is not something you use a great deal.
No.
So that surname field can be fraught with peril sometimes in various systems, but you know what? You actually don't use it that much.
Yeah.
So there are other things to focus on.
Yeah, very true. Then you're going into complexity of Mr. and Mrs. and being the wrong prefix and
hyphenated surnames.
Yeah. Oh. Awesome. Okay, moving on to number 7. Consider what your business as usual will look like post-implementation. So we're talking about skills, resources, support, the use of templates and planning. So people worry about change. Not everybody, but some people do, and it's completely normal. Organizations worry about not having the internal resources to manage something new. People worry about learning something new and whether they'll be able to get support or training or be able to just pick it up themselves. When they think about something new, some people get very excited about it, but then others just get a little bit more apprehensive and a little bit more worried. So how can we reassure everyone that there might not actually be a huge impact? And if there is, it's going to be for the better.
I guess absolutely about planning what that impact's going to be. It's change management essentially. So you just got to understand what the changes will be. And I think a lot of people will go into the vision of will think about the platform, the technology and the features they're going to have and what they're going to be able to do. But sometimes not enough about the team, the processes, who's going to be delivering it, and what that structure is going to look like in 3 months' time or in 6 months' time. And I think that needs to be part of that team plan, and they're on board with that change and they're excited about it, adopting these new skills and being able to do these things and come on the journey, and that's fantastic. And then who's going to do, if you've got objectives and you want to do things with the platform that you can't do internally, then how are you going to do that? And do you have a budget, and are you going to outsource it? And if so, to who? And I think it's about thinking about those types of things, because really you want to maximize the value of your investment, not go get to a point where you say, wow, yeah, we spent everything on the implementation and we got all up and running and then we just didn't have anything left for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You know, it's just thinking a little bit more beyond that, because, you know, there is so much more that you can do, or you would be able to do. You just got to plan that out. So
in my role with customer success, Ruth, I spend a lot of time on the front line with the customers, right? So typically meet the executives, understand all of that. And then once we're kind of ready to go, it's hitting the ground initially with end user training. And so the thing that can often freak people out, those users who are actually logging in and building emails and campaigns, is, well, I've just got to get my newsletter out the door. Like, how hard is this sort of exercise? So that's where things like templates, prepared early, it's always a good opportunity if you're moving from one platform to another to maybe look at refreshing. We don't have to do exactly the same thing. Let's step back for a second and have a closer look at how we can improve. So then when we go through those initial training exercises from a change management point of view, to Adrian's point, is that we can, in the training, have them pull down their template. And you can always see like the physicality of it. You know, the shoulders go down, they breathe, etc. They're like, okay, this looks familiar. I can do this. This is easy. And that's where templates become really powerful. And not just emails, but your segmentation, your campaign layouts, your forms, landing pages, all of those things, you know, wrapped up in many marketing automation platforms, can make a real difference to the end user. And that whole speed from going from 0 to 100, hopefully as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And I have to say as well that, you know, underlyingly the trend over kind of the last 5 years has been towards enabling marketers to do this in-house. It's not communicating it to an agency or creative design, whatever. It's basically being able to take that and build it yourself, and having the skills and the capabilities. And, you know, it saves so much time, it saves so much cost, so much effort.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, sure, there might be a back-end form or a hard landing page or whatever that has some technicality in it that, you know, that means that you can't do it directly in the platform. But, you know, more often than not, now it's something that easier to do it than explain it to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And Derek, we were speaking earlier as well. You mentioned a lady who had gone through some rigorous training, which was quite exciting. She obviously loved using the platform so much that that she went on to do her Eloqua Masters.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's kind of like at the extreme end, I suppose. But yeah, she only started with the firm less than 12 months ago. And she saw marketing automation, and in their example, Eloqua, as something that she really kind of loved. And it's tremendous from our point of view as, you know, as an agency supporting the client, to have someone in-house who not only just gets it, but really is like jumped on to go through that certification process. But there's so much available, and there should be. I mean, if you're shopping for these types of platforms, you need to look for those resources that are available for your end users. It's great that the board get it and the C-level folks get it, understand the commercial, the ROI, all that sort of stuff. That's great. But at the end of the day, too, you've got to think about the folks on the front line who are using it and all of the resources that are available to them to get up to speed as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, moving on to number 8. So map out your customer journey and how your marketing automation can help you deliver the experience that you are planning. We'll come to some of these examples in just a moment, but we've got you know, people, especially if they're passionate about marketing, or perhaps they've worked in an organization previously that have some more sophisticated marketing, or even people that just have a great vision, they just have the mind for it. They might already have an idea of what a customer journey might look like, and others might not. So what type of things would you typically suggest, or how do they start thinking about these journeys, and what type of guidance would you give them?
I think you need to map your campaigns into your overarching customer journey. So you've got, you know, your buyer journey, and I think you need to put yourself and be able to put yourself in the shoes of your buyer, right down to the, you know, the persona. Who is it that's really buying? And by taking that and mapping that against your customer journey, you can look at what are they feeling, what are the sorts of things that they might be interested, how would they engage, what do we have that might engage them, what do we know about them that could help us to provide a personalized experience. And in the context of that, we can start to sit down and go, right now, I understand the objectives of my campaign, I understand my buyer, where they're up to, who the audience is, and the kind of campaign that I'm trying to create.
as opposed to starting with, we're going to send X amount of emails out. And
Yeah,
this is
4
the time in
emails,
between.
2 weeks apart. You know, it's basically, you know, when that's really starting with the technology in mind and not really with the buyer and the buyer journey in mind and the context of that campaign. So I think it's really turning that on its head and looking at what sort of experience would that person, that type of person at that stage in their buying cycle, you know, what would they want? What would really be highly engaging for them? So that's definitely the approach that we would recommend in terms of starting that, and then look at, you know, what capabilities does the platform have that can help us to deliver a richer, unique experience that, you know, so do we use, you know, maybe different types of onboarding campaigns for different types. So let's take an example, you know, let's take a real estate, moving into an apartment, you know, what sort of onboarding campaign would a first home buyer need rather than say an investor, right? Two completely different, you know, that one's not even going to be living in it. You know,
don't care where the pool is.
Right? The other's gonna be, yeah, I'm here, I'm moving in, I'm all excited. This is the first one I've ever bought. I've never done this before. Am I doing all the right things, right? So you're not going to have the same onboarding campaign for those two different scenarios. So a one size fits all, 4 emails, 2 weeks apart, probably not going to work that well for those two. So you have to think about that, think about your audience, and then after that, we can think about what else do we have? Should we use dynamic content, you know, depending on where they're moving into, for example? Do we use, you know, can we make it a trigger-based campaign so that it's automatically triggered when we know the sale gets to a certain point, so we don't have to upload a list? You know, it's just thinking about those. And then can we change it depending on how our new first home buyer engages? So if they click on the school EDM, can we adapt their journey? Or if they don't click on the first 3 emails, do we send them the next 6 emails? Probably not. Do we look at what they're doing on the website and tailor the campaign based on the things they've done before? So we know that they're interested in these 3 things about our project. So we're going to tailor our onboarding journey accordingly. So it's just being smarter about how to automate those experiences and then leverage the technology to kind of make them unique. Yeah, absolutely. And Derek, we had some examples of the different types of automated campaigns, quite basic, that people could put together. So we're talking about automating onboarding campaigns, which we went into more detail there with Adrian. Tailor the lead nurturing campaigns based on CRM level, opportunity data, etc. Do you want to go through any examples of these kind of campaigns?
Look, these are probably 4 of the more common ones that we see with customers. You know, sometimes the whole lead nurturing can be why they even started the journey towards marketing automation, because they realize that, you know, we can't do this with our, you know, sort of small email system, and you know, you can't do it from the CRM, etc. So those are some examples of kind of where people really sort of start the ball rolling. Things like website inquiries, you know, it seems so simple, right? But right now, many customers have website forms that the inquiry goes into a CMS. They then have to extract it from there, or it might go into an email box that says, you know, it's might be, you know, someone please answer me at help.com or something, you know, and 5 weeks later someone finds it, right? But once you get your marketing automation and CRM integrated, well, these things can go from the website straight into a case management service request type function within the CRM. And then the nice part is that you've now got them in the platform. They've shared with you the level of inquiry. Then you potentially can start to engage with them. You know, if they're a customer, treat them this way. If they're a prospect, treat them this way. That sort of stuff. So there's a whole swag of things, but this is kind of like the low hanging fruit. This is not overtly complex, but it's a great place to start. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. So just moving on, we've got 2 more to cover. We're on topic 9, plan your MarTech environment. So you want to, you know, think native, app cloud, pre-built connectors, and then integration. So for some people, they will have thought about some of these things, others maybe not. So can you bring us through maybe some examples of what these different types of connectors or app cloud, integration, etc.?
Yeah, so I think a lot of SaaS applications will fit easily together, but often, but sometimes not. And so, and certainly old legacy systems are going to be harder to integrate. So really the point of this is just to think, a few years ahead. And also think about acquisitions or things that you're buying and how well they fit within your current kind of the jigsaw puzzle, which is your architecture today. So very often, your marketing automation platform, Eloqua, will have pre-built connectors or pre-built integrations that are maintained either by the companies or sometimes by Oracle or sometimes by third parties, but they do the maintenance of those connectors for you. So you don't have to maintain it. So essentially what that means is that every time there's an update to Zoom or every time there's an update to Eloqua, for example, the connector gets updated.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't have to update that integration. And so that saves a huge amount of time and effort in the integration, in getting the integration. The amount of information you can get is better. You can incorporate it easily. It'll automatically store that information about, in this case, how long someone's been on the webinar, whether they attended or not, all those sorts of things. You can pull that information through. And the same, another example is Eventbrite for, say, running events and ticketing, whether they turned up or not. So those types of so rather than getting an application that doesn't fit within your current market, just plan to get ones that do. And you can just save yourself a lot of time and money in integration. And then where do things logically fit? So often there might be a CRM and you might pull the CRM information up, and that's likely going to be a pre-built integration. If it's a SaaS to SaaS application, then there's probably already a connector.
Yeah.
But then again, sometimes CRMs won't connect to marketing automation. Life gets more difficult. You've got to build an integration. So maybe think about which ones connect. And then maybe that CRM also has applications that have pre-built connectors as well. So maybe like a lead dedupe or whatever it might be that might sit in there, whatever your salespeople need. And again, we can go down another layer to your ERP or your finance system, and does that connect to your CRM? And is that something that you can build in? So there is nothing wrong with the best of breed approach, but you just need to think about how those pieces are actually going to fit together. And if there's, if you have the ability to make choices about the types of applications that you're using, ones that are pre-built, you're going to save yourself a lot of time and money in that integration. So that's why when we look at kind of our integration, the first things we recommend looking at is, what are your native options? So do you need to integrate a survey application, or can Eloqua or can your marketing automation platform do surveys anyway? Do we need to look at integrating, SMS, or can the platform do it? If the platform can't do it, are there pre-built SMS connectors that you can link into? So that's kind of the next step. If you can't find a pre-built connector, then you're going to need to integrate. But what opportunities with this application you're looking at are there to integrate? Do they have APIs, and how easy is it to do? So all of these things just really save you a lot of time and effort and really enhance that connectivity between your applications and within that architecture.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. We've come to number 10. So it's invest in the project planning, and that's with the roles and responsibilities as well. So some companies, they don't have a lot of resources. We have spoken about this, and especially that company with 2 resources, but can still do the same marketing as a massive company for JPAC wide. What can they do in this case? How far in advance do you suggest planning? Who should be responsible for what? Like, what would be, in your experience, what would be kind of the best things to do in this situation?
So I think the main thing here is that it is a project.
Yeah.
So if you're a small company or a smaller company, the chances are you're not going to stop your day job and start doing your project implementation. So it's going to be on top. The good news is that the scale is also going to be less. So it's going to be much faster to implement. It's going to be much easier to do. And there's templates and ways that we can really make that whole process very easy. The larger organizations I often find that there really isn't enough investment in the project itself and in the resources that are required. So there's actually this kind of constraint that sits over, we want it all in place, in less than 4 weeks' time, but we're not able to have a meeting for 3.5 weeks. And so it's just that, sort of, okay, how is this really going to happen?
Yeah.
And who's going to do what? Who's going to do the project management? Who's going to be the CRM, champion and key stakeholder? who's going to decide on, the campaigns and what's going to be migrated. We need those experts and those stakeholders to be available.
This ties back into the executive support, right? That C-level sponsor.
Yeah, totally.
If you can get that happening, hopefully it speeds this process.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's like, okay, we want to do everything in-house, but we don't have any time for training. Well, we have to set that time aside so that you can do the enablement. And so it's just, it's just making sure that you haven't gone to all the time and effort of saying, this is what we want to do. We've painted the future vision. We've lined it up with everything. And the last thing that kind of gets left out is that we didn't really invest in the project to make it successful.
Yes. Yeah. So setting expectations from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Planning that out. How's it really going to work? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to make sure that what's the definition of success? How can we say that we've done it? We're going to go live because, Eloqua goes live the moment you get the login details. So what's the definition of implemented? What's the definition of the first? Is it the first campaign you send out? Is it when the first time your marketing team can send their own campaign out? There's different definitions, and so that needs to be understood. And so it's just really investing that, making sure it's successful.
Yeah, and talking about investing, I suppose that we are here today with Marketing Cube, and thank you so much for putting this fabulous webinar on. But it is a big thing as well, isn't it, to invest in a good implementation partner and someone who will support you and train you and make sure that your business is a success when you do make this change to a new application, and making sure that you're bound for success the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's important to have somebody that has the experience, is trying to, has proven success in implementing the kind of organization that you have, and that is able to help you and provide best practices and provide guidance around the sorts of things that you need to do. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do have an opportunity for Q&A. I can see that we do have one question here from Samantha. Samantha's actually an Eloqua customer, which is kind of nice. What are the your top three quick win tips to ensure I'm on the right track? I mean, the things that come to my mind is probably around insight, probably around good templates, and the platform is so dynamic. I mean, it's updated every 3 months with significant updates, and it'd be about keeping up to date with those. I mean, that's part of our job, I suppose, as the partner, is to really help the client. We know what they're doing. There's a lot of noise in relation to updates, which is great, but not every update is of major significance to every customer. Yeah. So we can sort of filter through that and say, hey guys, there's a great update just recently. This is going to help you do something differently.
The key
what
thing,
do you think?
I think the key thing that what I love to see is customers using engagement and how prospects and customers engaging, and to make a difference to the way that they then deliver the rest of the experience. Leverage engagement, because that's an insight that you have, and leverage that in your campaigns and in what you do next. So if people aren't opening emails, don't carry on sending them. If people are engaging in things, tell them more, or react to that engagement. So I'd say that if you're using engagement in how you're doing your marketing, that's a massive step in the right direction.
Yeah.
We have another question here from James. How often should I review and update my automated campaigns? And I wonder if James is kind of probably talking about those always on style campaigns. You didn't want to use the term set and forget, so we don't want to forget.
Definitely.
So how often should we be reviewing them?
I think that could really be a data-driven answer.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think, run your reports, have a look at what's working, what's not working, and use the data to drive, the requirement to do an update. If you're still hitting optimum results and you're happy with how those campaigns are performing, then okay, obviously things are not, making sure they're not going out of date and all those sorts of logical things, but really that refresh should be driven really by the results and go, okay, now we're seeing a drop off in this, or this content's not resonating, how can we optimize it more? And I think there's always this opportunity as well to to test and learn. So, I would be looking at those campaigns and saying, okay, well, now if we split test this and have a look at a slightly different option, do we get a lift? Yes, we do. Adopt it. So do we get a lift in something, and using that kind of process, you're looking at incremental improvements in the performance of those campaigns.
Yeah.
I suppose another logical thing is maybe a quarterly business review, right? So it's easy to keep cruising along and 12 months goes by and you've not really done anything. You've not sat back for a second and looked at that 30,000 foot view, and maybe a quarterly business review is an opportunity to do something like that, just to do a pulse check to see where things are at.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. That's from us at Marketing Cube. And of course, thank you very much to Ruth and the team at Oracle Marketing Cloud for your participation today and hosting us. We appreciate that. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks.